here's to the crazy ones. The misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
Hey friends, welcome to the latest episode of CX Changemakers. Thank you for being here with me and for coming on this journey together with me. So glad that we're together. We're going to spend about an hour today. If you're not familiar with this show and this particular track of content that I love so much, let me give you a couple of minutes here of what we're going to talk about and the kind of the format the show will take. And then we'll get right into it. High level, we're here to talk about some no BS points of view about what's going on right now at the intersection of AI and CX. And we're going to do that by bringing a couple of partners and friends of mine onto this conversation in just a couple of minutes, where we're going to really start to unpack everything that I think you need to take away about really practical ways of using AI in your business today. But before we do that, I have some things I want to talk with you about. First, if you're not familiar with the CX Changemakers show format as a whole, let's take a moment and talk about the last couple of episodes of this that I put together, which you can find here on LinkedIn or on YouTube and a couple of other places as well. The last time I did this show, which was about a month ago or so, I had the opportunity of inviting a gentleman named Adam Durrell on. He's the founding CEO of a company called Customer Gauge. And Adam is one of these guys that decided, long ago, 15 years ago, when he got his business off the ground, that sure, he could have said, I'm going to build a voice of the customer platform and fashion it after, let's say, Medallia or Qualtrics, and just take kind of a Me Too approach of saying, we're like Qualtrics, but cheaper. But he didn't. He decided to go a whole different path and built an amazing business around something unique in the business. And he proved his entrepreneurial mettle by doing that. Similarly, the month before, I had a gentleman named Richard Owen in this show. And if you don't know Richard, you got to check him out. He's had a long history in this business, but most recently, he runs a business called OCX Cognition. And Richard's in the business of saying, you know what, if you really want to understand your customers, you could even stop surveying them entirely. Go figure that one out, guys. And instead, he's saying, let's use AI to predict how people are feeling. So you get the trend here. These are people like Richard and Adam and others who have been willing to kind of carve their own direction, kind of make their own path in this world of kind of the CX and AI ecosystem, rather than just mimicking a much larger established incumbent supplier. They went out on their own path. And I really admire and respect it when people go out on their own and say, you know what, let's not take that easy path, but rather let's go fight the good fight and do something interesting. Before we get into today's conversation, one of my favorite parts of CX Changemakers is I give you guys gifts for just coming on this journey with me. And if you guys have been with me for a while now, you may have seen me give away copies of this book, and this way I could bring it into focus for you here. I apologize that it's a little bit blurry, but if I could just read it to you. It's called Information Dashboard Design by Stephen Few. This book for me is like how to make an amazing dashboard or how to express data visually. And this might be the single best book on the topic that I've ever seen. And I have 4 or 5 copies here at the house that I want to set aside for you guys, first come, first served. If you would like me to mail you one entirely for free, just as my gift for being here and hanging out with me, consider it offered. All we need to do is have you message me and say, send me a copy of the dashboard book, and I'll make sure that this gets dropped in the mail to you and you get it in just a few days. Again, it's my gift for just hanging out here and for being here with me. So guys, let's change gears now and let's talk about today. we got a big conversation ahead of us today that I really, really want to dig into with you if you're willing to come on this with me. Let me talk to you about what's going to come up. I had an opportunity to meet a couple of guys in the business a little over a year ago, maybe close to a year and a quarter ago now. These are the two guys who founded a company called Cotera in New York City. And my God, am I a fan and a believer in what those guys are up to. The two guys are Ibby and Tom, and they're both going to be here with us today. And we're going to talk to them over the next 40 or 45 minutes about what they're up to and why it's important. But to give you some context, when I first met Ibby and Tom, I was introduced to them through some of the work that I do these days, which is being this kind of industry matchmaker guy between partner companies and the market as a whole. And there was a previous conversation between, I think it was Ibby and one of my other partners at a different company who got put in front of me and said, hey, go talk to Ibby and see if we could figure out what this Cotera company is about. And at the time, Cotera was very focused on building AI systems to help you understand the voice of the customer better. And I could tell you they did that uniquely better than most people out there. But they have since really taken that story about what they really believe in about AI, and they've blown it up, 100-fold to be so much more strategic and so much more critical to almost every business that I can encounter these days. And we're going to talk more about that in a few minutes, by shifting their lens from being primarily, almost entirely, the way I considered Cotera before, as a voice of the customer analytics package, now into really being this truly AI-enabled automation platform for automating almost any task that people in offices do repetitively day in and day out. And the cool thing, guys, if you don't know about this type of technology, you're going to hear a lot about it today, is all you need to do is literally describe the task to the AI, and it will work out how to get it done and actually go deploy the necessary tech to make those workflows and tasks happen, and happen thoughtfully. And it's not just, my friends, about taking automation at the kind of like building a script. It's not about following a rigid workflow. It's about layering in intelligent checkpoints in that workflow where these agents literally make decisions on whether or not to proceed in a certain direction or change the direction or change the outcome. And we'll talk much more about that intelligence level in that workflow in just a couple of minutes. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to invite Ibby and Tom into this conversation. I'm going to ask them when they pop in here in a minute just to introduce themselves, because you guys may or may not know them. You may or may not know their business, Cotera. So I thought it would take just a moment to have them introduce themselves, and we'll just have a good chat and to see where it goes. So let's bring the guys on here. Ibby and Tom, thank you for hanging out here with my friends and me. Good to hang out.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys. So, guys, I was kind of talking a little bit of my opening preamble here, that I met you guys a little over a year ago, and we were talking originally in one specific context around this very CX heavy voice of the customer analytics context. And we broadened our conversation over this last number of months as Cotera evolved in your own mission that I think you're on to talk more about taking this story, 100x over that where you were, this time last year. And I thought we would just take a moment to ask you guys to introduce yourselves and the business the way you see yourselves. Like, there's nobody that could tell the Cotera story better than the two of you.
So, you tell it pretty well, Dennis. You tell it pretty well. You're very good at talking about these things.
So yeah, let's hear. Tell us about you guys.
Yeah, I was gonna say, also a very, very good introduction. I guess I'll go first. My name is Ibby. I'm one of the founders of Cotera. You did a great job of introducing it. The only thing that I'll say is, yeah, we are an AI agent platform. We primarily work with smart people at businesses that want to automate painful parts of their job. I'll go into the sort of CX part of that in a second, but the sort of general rule of thumb is if it's a repetitive task that you can either explain to an intern or a new hire, you should be able to explain it to an AI agent. You write it out just like you would an email, explain sort of, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's how often you need to do it. Here's what tools you have access to in the logins. And here's the data that you need to be able to make your decisions, right? So if you everything from something as simple as, we talked about voice the customer, right? Go through my tickets and individually classify each one, to something a little bit more advanced, every time somebody submits a bug ticket, go write a prompt for my AI coder to go and fix it, so I can automatically start squashing bugs on my platform, to go and find leads for me at different companies. You can as long as you can explain it to a bot and give it access to tools, it can do those tasks. And our goal as a company is to make sure that we save you time, right? Like, human time is an incredibly precious and valuable resource, and we want to make sure that that we help people save as much of it as possible. I think that if you count sort of our little internal clock, we've saved people over 80 million hours, and we want to get that to 5 billion by next year.
Guys, it's fascinating just to hear that perspective. I think when you think about scarce resources, the only resource that nobody has an unlimited amount of is time.
You're scaring me. Exactly.
I won't even talk about my jar of marbles on my bookshelf over there, where I throw a marble a week away until I run out of marbles and I know I'm out of time. Hey, Tom, as the co-founder, can you spend a few minutes or a couple of minutes and just really describe your path to coming together with Ibby and forming this business and kind of getting it pointed in the right direction?
Yeah, for sure. It's been a journey, really. Like the market we're working in has changed so much during the time that we've worked together. I feel like the stuff we're working on now, when Ibby and I got together, there's a lot of it that looks really very similar to how we started, but then there's a lot which is just, as the AI kind of revolution came around, that we really sort of took advantage of that coming along. But basically, my background, and Ibby's as well, although I won't speak for him, is really in kind of like data engineering and the software side of that. And before this, I used to work at a SaaS company in the UK where I ran the data platform and built systems to help private investors understand equity data at scale. So we kind of built these ranking models and systems to help them search through the data and make decisions based on that for their kind of personal trading. And when I decided it was time to start a business, I'd had enough of being working for somebody else, I guess. I knew it was going to be in data, and that's kind of how I got friendly with Ibby. We met on LinkedIn of all places. It's how most great relationships start these days, I believe. Yeah. And
all romantic relationships start on LinkedIn.
They will be on LinkedIn. It's the world's greatest dating platform. But we met there basically because I was kind of talking about this kind of data-oriented stuff in public, and Ibby, who ran data science at Peloton, sort of recognized the thread, and we got together. And in the early days, we were basically taking our sort of passion for helping people make decisions and automate things with data, and applying it in kind of more traditional machine learning, and sometimes just sort of metrics and BI-oriented ways to help our early customers do that sort of thing. And then as AI kind of late 2022, late 2020. Late 2023, I should say, sorry, really started to take off. It just very, very quickly became apparent that exact same line of thinking and all the same technology required to do those things was the same set of skills you needed to apply AI to these same business problems. And indeed, that's what our customers started asking us for. So it very, very naturally evolved from there into helping people use this new technology to make decisions better, automate things. It's really what data's always been about, and the kind of AI stuff, in our opinion, is just the latest kind of evolution of that, I suppose.
Yeah, I think we initially went after the CX market. We started with marketing. We started generating marketing personas using just conventional machine learning methods. And then one of our customers was like, hey, potential customers, they were a lead at the time. It's now Cotera, which is one of our bigger users. The head of CX there was like, hey, this is cool, but can you actually categorize my support tickets? And we were like, yeah, sure. And we actually tried building an out of the box model, and it would crash our laptops, right? We were doing the conventional NLP stuff, and it would crash our computers when we ran it. We're like, oh, this is going to be impossible. We promised it to her. We're going crazy. And then Tom goes, hey, this new thing called, that ChatGPT thing, they now have an API. Like, let's try it in there. And it was like he like wrote like 20 lines of code. Like, it was like very short. Like, he sent it to me, and we spent all night working on this problem. I woke up at like 5:30 in the morning. It still was broken, and he was in the UK at the time, so he was texting me being like, hey, this OpenAI thing might actually be a good solution to this. It's like a pretty good problem, and we just kind of wrote the first version of that software. Well, he wrote the first version of that software in like a day. We showed it to the customer and closed a deal off of it. We're like, oh, cool, we should try this. Yeah, she really liked it, right? Like, she was like, oh my goodness, like, this is gonna save me so much time. I spend like hours a week doing this. And then more and more customers started asking us for something like that, but it would have a little bit of a twist. They're like, hey, can you not only categorize my data, but also, ping me in Slack whenever someone says that they fell down in my restaurant, or can you put it back into Zendesk, or can you, instead of categorizing the topic of the ticket, can you like do QA on like how my employees are doing, right? Like, they started asking us for more and more things, introducing us to other people on their teams, right? It would leave CX, like, it would be, CX would introduce us to ops, which would introduce us to marketing, which is just someone else. And we started getting sort of this like vertical, almost like, hey, like, we started organically growing into businesses. And so we decided, earlier, like middle of this year, let's open up the platform a little bit to, let anyone come in, and as long as they can explain their problem, try to get AI to solve it.
Guys, I'm gonna throw down a little challenge for you here. And this is sort of a pet peeve of mine in my general CX work, that I found that there's no general consensus on what the words customer experience even means to people. I'm not sure there's any consensus on what AI means to people either.
Yeah.
I think, different people have different interpretations of the technology and kind of how it manifests. And I'm just curious your take on this, because like, you guys are very casually talking about things like these intelligent agents and AI and doing this type of work, but these ideas might be, a little new to people, or a little unfamiliar, or a little unclear.
Yeah.
Could we take a half a step backward and just kind of level set for a minute without getting overly nerdy about it right now? About kind of what is all this stuff and where does it fit into this tech stack ecosystem?
Yeah, for sure. I totally understand the. I very much understand this perspective. I have to explain to my mother, for example, what I do for a living, and I think she now kind of understands what I do. But the truth is, it's really simple. Like, as with almost all of these things that become, garner some market hype at various points in the sort of economic cycle, like, it's actually pretty simple when you get down to it. AI is just a sort of broad umbrella term for a category or like type of model that can be trained to either classify or make predictions or do something with some input. It's pretty vague intentionally, because really you can build an AI system to do just about anything. But the current crop of AI systems that have become really, really popular are large language models, which basically are just models which are trained to predict text from more text. And that's really all they are. Like, given some text that goes in, the model kind of predicts what text comes next. And it just so happens that that's actually quite a lot like how humans do stuff as well. And so they turn out to be really, really flexible and good at all kinds of tasks, from classification to, prediction and so on. The agent thing layered on top of it is, arguably even worse. That's very, very buzzwordy and very hypey right now. I think there's actually a really, really simple definition that is very simple, like very easy to understand, which is just that I think a lot of people are familiar with workflows. If you've used a tool like Klaviyo or something like that, you've probably at some point built one of these flow diagrams or flow charts that says, like, when my email arrives, if the header says this, then go and do this. Otherwise, go and do this, and then end the sequence. An AI agent is basically that, except that rather than a human ahead of time deciding all of the branches, the model itself decides what branches are going to be there. So rather than there being like a predetermined flow, there's just an LLM, an AI model that runs in a loop, and it just looks at the text input and it decides based on this input, what should I do next? And the decides bit is literally just predicting text. You can imagine it just like spitting out some text that says go left or go right in the decision tree, and that's really kind of it's honestly quite simple in many ways, and certainly using the tools is surprisingly simple. If you can use one of those Klaviyo type workflow builders, then I think working with AI systems is actually simpler than those, is the truth these days.
Guys, I'm going to totally show my age here. Tom, your example made me smile in the back of my mind for a very personal and big reason. And it's a little bit of a random story, but it bears telling here because it'll amplify your point. This goes back, I'm not going to tell you how many years ago, but a lot, where I was helping to build a company that in the early days of the web, in the early days specifically of the commercial web, there was a desire to simplify website navigation by putting these little, we'll call them like animated bots, or really like an avatar, like a little character that would sit in the corner of your screen. Remember, if you guys remember, the old guys remember Clippy from Microsoft in the oldest of old days, for example. And they would have a natural language interface to them where you could talk or type to them and it would do what you ask. And we were selling this little tech to create these little navigation agents for a website. Mm-hmm. One of the companies who was contemplating at the time buying this, and we were pretty far along with them, was McDonald's Corporation. And they wanted this little Ronald McDonald character to sit in the corner of the screen, and you could ask Ronald nutrition questions, or where's my local McDonald's, or how much does a hamburger cost, and it would do its best to answer you. But the way our tech worked in those days, it was a series of very rigid kind of if-then statements.
Yeah.
If somebody says lawsuit, do this. If somebody says price, do that. And we had to string these kind of pieces of logic together in a way that would kind of catch the majority of the input. Yeah. And if all those checkpoints failed, we'd tell the agent to respond with an "I don't know, please clarify."
Yeah.
Right. So. And we went through this whole thing. We proposed this automated Ronald thing to McDonald's. They loved it. They had us come in to give an on-site pitch. We gave the pitch. It went fantastically, but it was all wired up for the demo so that every scenario that we came up with would have been fine. And then we got a little ahead of our skis.
Yeah.
And we asked the people in the room what they wanted to ask Ronald. And a guy in the back of the room,
how many times I've done that?
The guy in the back of the room, the IT guy in the back of the room, raised his hand. He goes, "Ask your thing, what's inside a chicken McNugget?" And we hadn't contemplated that with our branching logic.
Yeah.
Right. So it should have failed and said, "I don't know." But for whatever reason, it came back with the answer Ray Kroc, who's their founding CEO of McDonald's. And it went from being a brief laugh to, "Oh my God," to us getting thrown out of the building.
Oh, damn.
And so I could appreciate where you're saying, you're taking this idea of these rigid linkages between ifs and thens.
Yeah.
And in effect, putting this level of, independent decision making.
Yeah, exactly. But then like the kind of key part of designing an agent is actually, so that work you did to design that workflow is actually pretty much the exact same work you would do to build an agent today. It's just that rather than mapping it out as literal, if-then statements, you give that decision-making procedure as context to one of these models, and it's then able to leverage that decision-making procedure in a very flexible way. So it'll handle out-of-band questions pretty well. But when one of the preordained questions comes through, it'll do what you want, and you actually have quite a lot of control, but then it's just sort of flexible at the edges. Also, McDonald's should totally have that these days. I think there should be a Ronald McDonald on the landing page that you can talk to. That'd be amazing.
If they only had a time machine to go back to those glorious times. Guys, jointly, I'm hoping you guys could help me think through something for a minute here.
Yeah.
The purpose of this particular show is to be really direct and really just be clear about, what makes Cotera, and what makes the other guys who they are. And you guys are operating in an increasingly crazy crowded space. So there's no shortage of people who are saying, I'm going to build something that might sound similar, at least at face value, to the things you guys talk about. And I want to ask you, just be blunt about it. Let's have a really honest talk about what makes you guys, in your opinions, different or better than the pack of these companies who are just kind of coming into your space now.
Yeah.
What makes you who you are, and why should a customer go, boy, you're the guys to go talk to? What makes you the guys?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, and again, I have a lot of empathy for these people, is like there are a ton of companies out there that are selling AI this, AI that, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got your incumbents, like Salesforce has spent tens of billions of dollars putting Matthew McConaughey's face inside some sort of like sexy scene where he's like, yeah, like, you know, Agent Force is like solving people's like body problem. Right? There was like this one where he was in a hospital and he's like saying, Salesforce with Agent Force can like help you triage like hospital stuff. And like, and 90, like Salesforce is having a terrible time and a very, very difficult time selling Agent Force.
I've heard that.
Not something that works. You've got like a ton of other companies that are doing the exact same thing. And then you've got workflow companies that seem to be doing on the surface something like that like we're doing, right? Like you've got actually OpenAI came out with Agent Kit. The thing that differentiates us and our agent layer from other companies is that we are not a drag and drop workflow builder with some AI thrown in. Even OpenAI's own agent builder experience is you string together basically, okay, first, like you're going to get an email. Next, you're going to take that email and you're going to, convert it to Spanish using this like little AI bot. Then you're going to, if, the Spanish has the word hola in it, you're going to send it as a Slack message. Otherwise, you're going to send it as an email, right? Like you have to stitch together these like workflows. Very, very similar to, Mark, what you were talking about, just with a little bit of AI incorporated into it. We are AI first. The way that our agents work is it's a very, very, very simple experience. You write to it, and I can pull it up if you want, but like you write to it like you would write to a human. You create like a document like you would create a Google Doc for a new hire. You explain the process that you want it to follow. You give it access to tools, right? So you every single agent, you don't want to give it access to everything, right? You don't want to give it access to the entire internet because then you have safety concerns and all of that kind of stuff that comes in. You give it access to very, very specific tools. You explain the context and then you set it live, right? You set it and you forget about it. It's like, hey, every time I get an email, I want you to convert it to Spanish and I want you to send it to me in Slack. Those are all written instructions with connections to Gmail and connections to Slack, right? That's all it is. You give it an instruction, you give it access to Gmail, you give it access to Slack, and you hit go. And every time a new thing comes into Gmail, it gets read by the AI bot and it sends it to Slack. And that's how we think about our agents. We think that there's one extra part, which is the workflow part of it. We believe that enterprises work on top of the data warehouse. All of our agents are data warehouse native by design, but I won't go into that too much just because it's a little bit too technical.
So bringing your agents to the data.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way of putting it.
We should use that on the website. Bring the agents to the data. Yeah, I think that's
rather than the data to the agents.
Exactly. Like an adjacent point to that, just to sort of reiterate something Ibby was saying is the data warehouse thing. It's really about context. Like the big challenge in making these agents reliable, making them useful is basically access to the tools and stuff like that. Just talking about, they've got to be able to take actions in your ecosystem. The other side of it is they've got to know like what you're talking about. And for a given business, that just means anything from background information about like the processes and how the company does this, right down to, for this specific ticket I'm looking at, what's this customer's purchase history, anything that a support agent might go and look up in a support in a sort of adjacent system while answering a ticket. a big part of what we do is helping organizations like stitch all that information together as well. I think that's just really, really important. It's kind of like unglamorous, very difficult work very often, but it's absolutely vital to make stuff like this work. And honestly, any data project in general work at all too. So I think that's somewhere where we kind of really pride ourselves on, is that we just take that really seriously and do the kind of hard work to make it happen. And not many companies are doing that. They kind of give you this like agent thing, and then when it doesn't work, it's like, well, that's your fault. You didn't get the context set up. And no, to be successful, you need all these things. It needs to be the whole package.
So, guys, I'm going to be a big old troublemaker here for a minute and describe my scenario, and I want you guys to tell me why that's no longer the case. I could imagine what you're talking about is a very tech-centered solution that probably would have required a lot of IT intervention to really make this happen. And I've heard a rumor that you guys are moving kind of your delivery mindset from being very technically supported to being very DIY oriented for a business user or a business analyst, somebody with a business interest, without having to get into that forever waiting list to get the IT guys to come support them. But I think about like the companies that I've worked with, new projects that are not in the queue now could take a year to get through IT. Right. And if do you guys have a way to counter that? Tell me about, this is going to be a big week for Cotera from what I've heard. Talk for a couple of minutes about kind of where you're taking the business and why it matters with regard to kind of ease and access.
Yeah. So like my kind of first response to that, I guess, is that when you look about like look at how these tools are being adopted by companies today, like it's still very, very new technology, and it's still relatively cutting edge, and a lot of people in a given organization, quite rightly, are somewhat skeptical of AI. And what you see quite often is that there's a handful of sort of tastemakers, I guess you could call them, within a given organization that are really into this technology and kind of pushing it. And so much of buying in the AI space is actually being driven by these individuals who just love the technology and kind of see the potential. And we want to build something, and really something which, to add to your point, like TBD later this week, or TBA to be announced, that just lets people like that who want to play and want to experiment get up and running with this stuff very quickly, very easily. And then, that does then play into the kind of IT thing you're talking about, because certainly for a larger company, if you want a large scale deployment of anything that's going to touch like every support interaction and all that kind of thing, you are going to have to loop in like IT and the data team at some point. Sure. But going to those teams with a proven, like, hey, here's a great thing that we've proven out value with, it's working in this small scenario, we've got buy-in from all the people who are like, relevant, and that this is going to work, like it's a good way to do things. That makes getting through the procurement process just so much easier for people than trying to go in upfront with this kind of large, scary pitch of like, oh, we're going to bring in this AI system that will like magically fix stuff. There's no proof points, but like it's going to work. Trust us. So we're very much taking the business that direction, partly because that's kind of the way the market's working right now, but also just because, I don't know, the product just begs to be kind of used in this sort of way. Like it's so useful and so fun for kind of individuals to use and apply to like small scale problems that when there is a way to let people sign up and just use it in 5 minutes, why not? Like it's kind of just cool.
Is it more like,
exactly.
Go ahead, Ibby.
I'm sorry. No, you got it. I
was going to ask just a follow-up question for Tom. Are you envisioning then the new direction to be more like a sandbox environment or more of an ability for I, as a business user without a whole lot of technical skills, can get into this tool and navigate around the platform and build an agent and even try it out in some kind of fenced in way?
I guess I wouldn't even call it a sandbox. I would call it like just a full-on instance that somebody will be able to get in and play with and build stuff with. The types of data you're going to be able to get into it. So like letting somebody into an individual account and putting a CSV of whatever data they'd like in is going to be really, really easy. If they want to get the company's data warehouse looped in, probably at that point you're going to have to bring in the data team and speak to them. But But yeah, I would say it goes beyond sandbox. It's really just a fully fledged version of the product for like, a small
That's cool.
team or individual to kind of build stuff and get creative with. We're really, really excited about it. It's kind of how we're using it internally. We're all everyone at the company is just kind of building stuff in it all the time, and we want other people to have the same thing.
I remember you, I guess, Tom, it may have been you, maybe Ibby, I don't remember which of you two, were on LinkedIn and saying that guys like in your sales and marketing teams are building their own agents now and deploying them to automate their own work. And I'm thinking, boy, that's a big breakthrough from where we were 18 months ago by far.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's very, very easy to go in. We're also we're launching a ton of really, really interesting things, like a marketplace. You start to view the inklings of this at cotera.co/marketplace. If you go there, I'm going to actually speak directly to Bruce. Bruce has been chatting in the chat here. He was asking some examples of specific tools. You can actually view all of the tools if you go to our doc site, so cotera.co/docs, and scroll down to the individual tool section. But basically, it's really, really, really interesting to see. People are coming to us. They're like, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? And they're like, yeah, it's really, really easy. Just explain what you want to the bot. From time to time, the biggest question that we get is people will ask for help with prompting. They're like, nobody really knows. And honestly, neither do we. Like, neither did we, at least. Like, we've gotten a little bit better at it, and we now have prompting courses. Actually, a lot better. That's true. We now have prompting courses. Like, you can go to cotera.co/learn, and there's like a fun game that'll teach you how to prompt. We think that we think that, as Tom said, there are a lot of these people that are excited about using the technology, and they're either, already messing with it themselves. If you're somebody that uses ChatGPT or talks to it, you're a great fit for a product like this. Or they want to, right? They're interested. It's just that they log in and they either see like a code terminal, or they see like a workflow builder, or they see API this, API that. We want to remove all of that friction, and we want to make it really, really easy for an individual to think of an idea, write it out to a bot, get helped with their prompt, and connect it to tools to be able to be able to save time. And that's our goal. But yeah, we're launching a ton of stuff. We're launching templates. We're launching a partner program. We're really, really excited about everything that's going to come. It'll be both hopefully a way to mobilize the community to be able to actually like make some money, help people out, become kind of like known as an agent developer.
Sounds like we couldn't have had better timing for this conversation.
Yeah, it's definitely good timing. Bruce, to your question, yes, we're LLM agnostic. It works with any of the model vendors.
Bruce's question is an interesting lead-in, guys. Can we take a couple of minutes, just a couple, and just really get a little bit nerdy and talk about what's going on under the hood? And let's really talk about kind of your setup, so people who really want to take this conversation there get some sense of what makes what's your stack look like? Where do you go and how do you connect? Is it, to Bruce's point, is it an MCP type of application or something different? Talk about kind of your mindset for that.
Yeah, we actually think it's really, really simple. The way that we find most people want to pair their data, right, running these things on top of data, is either by connecting it to a database, or connecting it to like a CSV, or connecting it to like an ingestion source, right? All of my Zendesk tickets. And so that's a big part of it. But the way it works is, again, you write your prompt, you select the model provider, right? You select this idea of, hey, like I want to use Gemini, I want to use Claude, I want to use expensive Claude versus cheap ChatGPT versus DeepSeek, whatever, right? You just pick the model that you want to use. And then there's a whole library of tools that you can connect to, right? Like, I want this bot to be able to send a Slack message. We do not use MCP, and I'll actually let Tom talk about why we don't use MCP. Everyone, when they hear about it, they're like, why don't you use MCP? Everyone's talking about it on LinkedIn and Twitter. It's the future. Why are you not doing that? There's actually a really, really good reason. Tom, I don't know if you want to talk about this. I've got my own opinions on this, but I actually really like the way that you explain it, if you want to talk about it.
Are you putting me on the spot? Is that? I guess you are.
I mean, sure. Like, I think that MCP is great if you want to use it on
Yeah.
the quad desktop once, but if you want to give an AI agent that operates 1,000 times a minute access to
Yeah.
something, you want to give it really, really narrow control over what it can do and narrow permissions on its actions.
Yeah, and I think actually even more so than that is just MCP, the protocol, is just extremely young still. It's really, really incomplete, and there are really only about 10 high quality like web ready MCP servers in the world. Like Linear have one, Notion have one. There's like very, very few of them, and it's because the way the protocol is implemented makes it extremely challenging to build a good quality web-based MCP server. And so you do have a lot of good ones that run on your laptop for Claude Desktop and stuff like that, like Ibby says. And those are really good. I actually use those quite a bit. But if you want to like talk them over the web, which is what these like background agents that talk to a data warehouse have to do, MCP is just not really there, unfortunately. And so we have taken this route of building all the tools ourselves so that we can have full ownership of like the quality and make sure that they're reliable, basically. MCP is kind of like, while I think it's overhyped right now, I do agree that it's quote unquote the future, in the sense that I think we do want a protocol that standardizes these sorts of things. And I really hope that MCP matures and becomes like the thing we can use, because yeah, the world where there's 5,000 MCP servers out there that all just work with the same protocol and we can plug our system into them and they will just work would be an amazing future, and it would save us a hell of a lot of R&D expense. But it's not the world we live in today, sadly.
Tom, there's sort of that unfortunate joke, right? The beautiful thing about standards is there's so many to choose from.
There's so many. Exactly.
Right. I mean,
and in AI, they're all about 8 months old, basically. So
yeah, that's wonderful. Hey guys, everybody has heard all the upside stories about how AI can bring levels of efficiency and effectiveness and blah, 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 and all that good stuff. And nobody's questioning that. I'm wondering for a second if we could look at the other side of that equation and, talk about cost. People, different solutions, different approaches, and I'm not talking about just the cost of the software, but really cost of ownership. What can a company who wants to get involved with this type of approach expect their first year, and just spitball, first year, first 18 months investment to be? Is this a big deal for them? Is this a little deal for them? Is it somewhere in the middle? What's real?
It depends entirely. This is a great question. And actually, I was having a different conversation with a friend yesterday about this. I don't want to give you a cop-out answer because it's not fun, right? Like, it's not fun for the people to hear. I think that the way to think about it is to think about it in terms of ROI, right? Like a great example of this is, and the other thing that I'll say is the cost scales to zero, right? The beauty of the way these things work is that it's usage-based pricing. Anyone who's trying to sell you, I actually give this warning to people, where if an LLM, if a company that claims to sell AI is trying to sell you like a seat-based product, their incentive is to use the as cheap of a model as possible to reduce their token count, which means that over time, their product is most likely going to get worse, or at least it's going to get very, very, right? Like, because what they're doing is they're basically saying, hey, I've got this process. I can sell you sort of a flat rate. And if you only bring this much data in, it will cost me this much. So I can figure out how much I can charge you. But the second they need more money, all they do is they switch the model to be cheaper. We've actually heard this from a lot of our customers that end up switching to us from other providers.
Sure.
Is the benefit is that the cost scales to zero. Like, I'll give an example for the CX people that are on board. We have a customer that used us to do QA scoring, right? They had a QA team of one person. That person was in charge of both going through and scoring tickets, but also doing all of the training, right? Now, as their inbounds grew, they ended up spending a ton more time. 80% of her time was spent actually scoring individual tickets, and only 20% was spent training. But the upside comes from training, right? The human should be doing the training and not the scoring.
Yep.
So what she did was she came to us and was like, hey, like, I want to be able to use AI to do the scoring and then notify me when somebody scores low so I can go and manually look at it and then I'm the one that wants to create the training plan. Now,
Sure.
when they started, she was like, what's it going to cost? Because now instead of just scoring 4% of my tickets, I can score 100%. And we were like, well, it's going to cost, they had tens of thousands of tickets a month. We were like, it's going to cost like, it's anywhere from the low number of thousands of dollars to, depending on how big your rubric is, high single digit thousands of dollars. And she was like, oh, okay, like, listen, I actually want to do a POC. That actually sounds fine if it improves our NPS by a significant amount, but I don't want to do that. And so what we did was we just, we only had the AI score 1 out of every 100 tickets. And suddenly the cost went to 1 out of every 100. And it just becomes, again, it scales to 0. You can have it score things. You can have it score like 5 tickets for you. And the cost of that is like 0.00003 cents.
Sure.
And then once you're happy with how it works and you're seeing the ROI that comes from it, you can actually incrementally scale the cost to whatever you want. I would say that instead of setting aside like large amounts of dollars, I would set aside large percentages of your team's time to spend time learning how to use these tools and putting their processes on paper, because that is where you're going to spend most of your money. Like the AI cost can be like in the single digit thousands of dollars or even the high number of hundreds, but you are probably going to take the smartest person on your team, take time away from what they're doing today, and lose some of that for at least a couple days or a couple weeks to be able to make sure that they can get their process down on paper so you can get more leverage out of that person. But if you're paying that person $100,000 today and you're getting $100,000 out of them, there's a world in which they can use AI effectively and you get 5x output out of them because they're now only doing high leverage stuff. So you're spending a couple $1,000s, but the ROI that you're getting of that from your team save time is hundreds of thousands, if not millions, depending on how you scale it.
Yeah, I really like everything you're saying there, and like I was just thinking about it in the context of like the kind of negative side of cost of ownership of this AI stuff, like the angle of your original question mark, and I think what Ibby's saying is so relevant because most companies approach it exactly not like that, where they take it as this kind of like high level. There's this kind of silver bullet on the market. It's coming at the top down. So the CEO says we've got to figure out how to use AI. Salesforce says that this AI is going to like replace people, and so we take this like very, very kind of like ambitious top down project where the objective is to like replace people essentially, and those are. And they're just fraught with risk because there's so much nuance to what like an actual person does that it's like very, very hard to draw that line of when it like, when this human replacement allegedly is like done. But yeah, all the successful projects that we've run and that we've seen are exactly like he's talking about. They really go bottom up. They identify like what are repeatable activities that individuals are doing, which are ripe for like automation using this tool. And yeah, for what it's worth, there are no people that can be fully replaced by these things. Like they're not human replacements. They're literally just like smart calculators that can do calculations on text. Like that's really all they are. And if you go bottoms up that way, you actually just greatly diminish the risk, greatly increase the chance of success. You find a win. It could be really small, as Ibby says. It could be tiny even, and then you can kind of scale from there. And yeah, we have definitely run some pretty large scale operations for people, but it doesn't start like that. It always starts with like a small, well-defined, like, hey, here's this task that we think can be automated this way. Let's prove it out with like a small subset. His QA example was great, and then go from there. And
but even in a human assist capacity versus a human replace capacity, I think it was somebody at Gartner had said to me a while back that in their opinion, in kind of a human assist capacity, some of these AI systems will have a marginal increase on high performers' capabilities. But what it will really do is it'll level up your lower performers to be as good as your high performers, if not, at that new increased level. So everybody moves up, but the net increase is obviously less the better you are.
I don't necessarily, actually, Tom, I'm so curious to hear what you think of this. I don't necessarily
I think it depends on the demand. I'm curious to what you're going to say, but I think it depends.
So it's like, okay, here's something that I'm just going to start talking here, and maybe this will go somewhere, maybe it won't. I'm going to try to keep it short so it's not boring. One thing that we did at the company is we have a relatively lean team, right? We don't have like tons and tons of people, But what we've done is we've started to give everyone access to coding agents, right? We've given our sales team, our marketing team, our CS team, our engineering team access to things like Claude Code and Cursor. And the thing that we've seen come out of it that's crazy is just that it's blurred the lines between what everyone thinks their job is. So I'll give you one use case. We for a certain sect of our customers, they get a forward deployed engineer, right? That comes from, we brand them as CS, but they're really forward deployed engineers. They will help you if you come and sign an enterprise contract with us, we will help you build these agents. And their job is to build agents. Now, they're not technical. They don't need to be technical. We don't only hire people that are technical for this. But what we do is we hire people that can like explain tasks to an agent. We test their writing. We test how good they can take a business problem and write about it. But they're also the ones that produce the largest amount of bug tickets for our engineering team because they're constantly talking to customers. And what would happen is our engineering team is also lean, right? Like we have a handful of engineers. They're incredibly backlogged. They're working incredibly hard. And there's a lot of things that would be nice for customers that oftentimes went on the backlog. Now, we gave these people access to Claude Code and showed them how to use it. And now what's happening is about 7 out of 10 times, these basic bugs that are coming to them, where they're using the product themselves, or customers using it and they complain, or they suggest an improvement, they will just go and talk to Claude and have it fix the problem and give the PR to our head of engineering, who will then approve it. They'll read it and they'll make sure it works and they'll approve it. And we've set up a lot of guardrails to where we can't accidentally have AI break the whole thing.
Sure.
But it makes it really, really easy to expand the TAM of what someone can do, what someone who's non-technical can do in our code base.
That makes complete sense.
I feel like that's a good example of where, like, to Mark's point, that is a good example of AI kind of like adding a good chunk to people that couldn't normally do the task and making them capable. But then, I don't know. I think the flip side of it is that, like, I think the biggest leverage point of Claude Code is actually to people who could write code already. Like it's very. I think there are certain domains where like writing software where like it's kind of multiplicative rather than additive, and whatever your existing skill is, it gives you like a 10x of that. And for like one of these forward deployed engineers that he's talking about, that might take you from like can't fix a bug to can fix a bug, but it takes a good engineer to ships code that 5 engineers would normally ship, and that's like a bigger increase because it's still 10x of what they were, but it's like
sure.
Whereas in like customer support, it's kind of different, isn't it? Because like if you know the procedure for a given issue, like you kind of know the procedure or you don't, and if the agent can do that procedure, then it sort of levels the playing field, and it's not obvious there's a way to like outperform by using the tools, if that makes sense in that domain.
Yep. I have only a couple of last questions that are really floating around in my head, guys, that I would be conscious of our time together, because we could sit here all day and that would be fun, but I think people are going to start to give up on us after an hour or two. My first real question, this is really meant to be a quick response kind of question, not a long thought process. Is there a company out there in this space now, whether it be a client company, a prospect company, another vendor company, who's really that you look at and you admire, that you said, boy, those guys just nailed it? Who nailed it?
I think that there's two that immediately come to mind to me for a very similar reason. I'm curious what Ibby thinks of these. And Clay and N8N are the two I'll call out. And the thing that they've really got right that I really admire is this kind of like community aspect of them, where they've created a way for agencies who work on those platforms and people who just like to build, frankly, to build and share their work on those platforms. And that's something that we're kind of in the process of setting up, as Ibby said. And I obviously I think there are flaws with their products, otherwise I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. But I think that community side of it, they've really done an amazing job of, and I admire that greatly. And I hope we can emulate that.
Ibby, anything on your side?
Yeah, I'd say that Clay and N8N are also very good in our space. In other spaces, there are a handful of truly, if you haven't used, I think that like companies that I really admire companies that build good products and they make those products easy to use. A couple of them that come to mind for me are Gamma is actually great. We have an integration with Gamma. They have like their own AI. It works incredibly well. It's one of those things where the way they've gotten the tools to work is very similar to, imagine like a Claude Code, but for like a consultant that like spends all day making PowerPoints. I think that that's actually quite a great product. I'll talk about emerging people in the market. They're really good. I really admire what BrowserBase is doing for like the autonomous side of the web. They basically like make it really easy to build sort of like agents that go and visit websites and do the same thing over and over again. It is like a coding based platform, but they've made the experience really nice. And then the last one is just my favorite. I spend all of my time on, I was an engineer-ish before, like my background's as a data scientist, but I also now ship code at this company. I spend most of my day on meetings. And the reason I can do that is because it's just always running on the side, and between messages, between meetings, I can easily just go and like tell it to go do something, and it'll like constantly add things. I'd say 90% of what I do on it actually doesn't make it into our production instance because we have a high barrier, but that's also great. I also realized, Bruce, I've been like talking in the comments, whoever's like messaging in the community section, I've been actually typing in this like StreamYard thing, but nothing seems to be going on to the, I checked the LinkedIn Live out for a sec to see what that looked like, and it's not going there. So I'll respond in there after this.
Thank you. So guys, last thing for you as we wrap this conversation up. I hope that people who are out there listening now to the live conversation here or on the recording into the future, they want this to be just the beginning of what they hear about Cotera. And if they want to reach out to you guys, one or both of you, to say, hey man, let's talk more about what you guys are cooking up. What's the best way? Is it LinkedIn? Is it through the web? Is it email? What's the best way for people to tap you on the shoulder and say, let's talk?
Listen, you can text me. I'll give the people that are listening. If you're listening, if you got to this point in this podcast and you stayed with us to the end, you can have my personal cell number, which is 402-468-8492. Shoot me a text. We can have a chat. I promise I will respond to you. Otherwise, LinkedIn.
You're gonna put that down in the chat?
Yeah.
Put that down.
It won't work. It doesn't work, but yeah, I will. I'll put it on LinkedIn. The other one is just, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I check it always.
LinkedIn is also great if you don't want to get pinned down by Ibby on a phone call. He won't stop talking.
Gentlemen, it's been such a joy for me to talk with you here. Thank you for hanging out for the hour. And again, we could have talked, for the balance of the day. I only have 1,700 more topics to cover with you guys here if you really wanted to. But thank you for this time. And guys, if you want to know more about Cotera, and I urge you to check it out. Check out their website. Keep an eye on them over the next few days. Big stuff bubbling up over there. You'll see changes coming. And I think it's worth a close look. I've looked at some of the other AI platforms recently, and Cotera is I think the best that I've seen. And the reality is I've had access to a half a dozen different ones. And I think that I'm here because Tom and Ibby are just gentlemen. They're thoughtful. They're damn smart. And Ibby has some of the best hair going in the business.
Mark, you spoiled. Mark, you're too kind. I'm blushing. We appreciate this so much. Like, this is so fun talking to you. Whoever's out there listening, thank you so much for listening to our random diatribes. Please feel free to reach out. We're always open to help. We promise it won't be a sales pitch. We just want to show people the cool things that AI can do.
Exactly. Yeah. No, appreciate you having us, Mark. And I need to work on my hair for next time so I can get a compliment too. But it's okay. No hard feelings.
We're only a week after US Halloween here. And there's all sorts of, you could go to the store now and get these special deals on these scare wigs where you can have like pink hair that's out to here. You might consider it for the next video that you guys do.
Post launch. That's what Tom's gonna wear.
Yeah.
If we get a few hundred signups on our launch, I will.
I think there's something about hair. Something about hair will stick out in people's minds. Guys, thank you again. let's just wrap this up by just a quick housekeeping thing, guys. Again, going back to where we started, if you guys want a copy of this dashboard book that I held up in the blurry camera, hit me up. It's a great book. It's worth checking out. My gift to you, I'll send it to you today if you want a copy. The other thing from a housekeeping standpoint, guys, I don't know if either of you are coming. There's a digital CX conference up in Toronto, Canada next week. And I'll be up there for the week hanging out with my north of the border friends, talking a lot about CX and AI. And I'm hoping that if you guys are anywhere near Toronto, hit me up and I have some free passes to get you into the conference. Come hang out with me up there.
Honestly, I might take you up on that. Yeah, Toronto's like an hour flight from here. Tom, I don't think can leave the country, so
I'm not allowed to leave the country. Yeah.
But honestly, I can do that. I haven't been to Toronto in a while. I'm sure that there's a day or two next week that I can swing by. I've got some Hyatt points.
But anybody who wants to come hang out in Toronto, it's going to be, the conference is November 12th and 13th at the Hyatt Regency in Toronto. Come check it out. It's the Digital CX Conference. And guys, again, the Cotera team, thank you for being here. And for my friends took the hour to listen into this conversation, thank you. And we'll see you guys all real soon. Take care, folks. Take care, guys.
Cheers, Mark. See you.
Bye, guys.